Rand Paul has been showing his libertarian side recently by calling for the decriminalization of marijuana and giving a speech this week at Howard University that expressed his sympathy for civil freedom. So is Paul onto something? Are his libertarian ideals the sweet spot of where the GOP needs to be to win elections again and maybe broaden its tent?
The crowd was receptive for the most part. There was a protest at one point, which got a little bit of applause. Rand himself did not get a ton of applause, but there was one moment where he did get some claps, and that was when he talked about introducing a bill to allow judges to bypass mandatory minimums on federal sentences for drug crimes and nonviolent crimes. At the end, he got some genuine applause. So, and a number of students mentioned the mandatory minimum issue to me and other reporters as well. That got him some real positive plaudits. Well, overall, I think, people were just glad he was there. So I think it was a good step. It's not going to change a ton, but if he does more of that, I think it could make a difference.
Well, and as expected, the media had a little fun with it. I want to show a clip. This is from Jon Stewart's show last night that criticized what Paul was trying to say in his speech. Take a look.
How did the party that elected the first black U.S. senator, the party that elected the first 20 African-American congressmen, how did that party become a party that now loses 95% of the black vote?
I'll take that one. See, because for the last 50 years, the Republican Party has embraced a craven political calculation known as the Southern Strategy, which stated that, quote, from now on, the Republicans are never going to get more than 10% to 20% of the Negro vote, and they don't need any more than that. The Republicans would be short-sighted if they weakened enforcement of the Voting Rights Act, because the more Negroes who register as Democrats in the South, the sooner the Negrophobe whites will quit the Democrats and become Republicans. That's where the votes are. Unquote! From Nixon's Law and Order to Reagan's Cadillac driving welfare queens to H.W. Bush's Willie Horton campaign, all the way up to the present day, where the party had a serious presidential contender who lived on a ranch that had once been called,
Niggerhead.
Right, that. So all that will tend to alienate a voting bloc.
Pretty amazing. Nana Yanka writes in, the fact that he didn't even think or know that Howard students are aware of the history of the NAACP is insulting. John, you were laughing. I mean, you said that the response ultimately was a good one. Is it fair for Jon Stewart to criticize it?
I think Rand Paul set himself up with that specific portion of the speech where he asked, how did this happen? His speeches are sometimes a little clunky and a little disjointed and a little not that polished. He could have avoided, I think, getting mocked by just not asking such an asinine question.
Well, Radley, I mean, Foxy Shazam says Rand Paul is showing leadership, which I would agree, regardless of your political views. I mean, at least he's standing up for what he believes. We have not seen this from anyone in years. His father has made some racist remarks before, so you have to figure Rand is not far off in that line of thinking. I mean, Radley, you're a libertarian. I mean, what did you take from his speech the other day?
Well, a couple things. I think, first of all, if this was to be a legitimate sort of sincere outreach to the black community, I think he should have, drawing on the Stewart bit, he should have owned up to the Southern Strategy and the Nixon campaign in '68 and Reagan, Willie Horton, all that, because those were really cynical political ploys to fight racists in the South. I mean, there's a reason why a lot of the segregationist politicians switched from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party. That said, I also think a lot of the criticism of Paul, particularly with the Civil Rights Act, has been unfair. The one part of his speech that got a lot of praise from progressives was his attack on the drug war. And, Paul's objection and a lot of libertarians' objection to the Civil Rights Act was not an objection to forcible integration, even of private businesses. It was the use of the Commerce Clause, this really expansive reading of the Commerce Clause to force that integration. And it was that same expansive reading of the Commerce Clause basically that allowed Nixon to pass the Controlled Substances Act, which gave us the modern drug war, which has been, devastating to the black community. So I think it would have been better if he would have actually sort of gone into that history and explained, why he said what he said about the Civil Rights Act and explained that, maybe we could have integrated through other means, but that his objection was really because it threw open this huge hole that gave us the ability to have the modern drug war.